Anyway, I'm going to move without further ado to our first little treat in the selection box, which is Dr. Jenny Hall. And this is around because you've got a bit of free time over Christmas, maybe. And this, many of you will know Dr. Jenny Hall. She's chaired several maternity hour sessions. She was a previous editor of The Practicing Midwife and has written widely on midwifery, education, reflection, and creativity. And she's recently written, if you haven't read it, a great article on the newest edition of The Big Issue, and is an educationist, a passionate midwife, and creative wonder. She helped get us knitting little midwives a few years back, I think 5 years ago, maybe.
2016.
Very good recruitment drive, Jenny.
Yeah.
And she's also an editor for Matflix and fellow of the Royal College of Midwives and senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. And welcome, Jenny. The screen is now yours.
Well, I'm not going to do anything with the screen. It's just going to be me. I'm just going to have myself tonight. I'm just going to talk to you. And my aim is to encourage actually more of you, whether you're midwife students, everybody, birth workers, to write a bit more. And there are lots of reasons behind that. And I'm going to just try and race through this because I know that I could talk for hours on this particular subject. And as Sue has said, I've been involved in writing and editing for a number of years. And my first article that I ever had published was in 1990, just to show you that it actually still exists. I've still got it here. It was in a journal called The Midwife, Health Visitor and Community Nurse. And it was, at that time, I'd been qualified for a few little years by then. And I was getting a bit frustrated with some of the people that I was working with. And I wrote a letter. It was actually meant to be a letter, and it ended up being published as the editorial. I don't think I'm going to have time to actually sort of write about it, but to read you any of it. But basically, it was about the attitude and the lack of care that some of these midwives were actually showing to the people that they were caring for. And it was about relationship with the women, those kind of things. And funnily enough, is what we're still dealing with now, very sadly, after all this time. And I put actually in it, agreed, we're all meant to be a caring profession, but we are hopeless at caring for ourselves and for each other. And if we're unable to do these, how can we expect to truly care for our clients? And we are still in that situation now. So perhaps some time I might get it online again because can do that. Anyway, so to write, but why? Why do I want you to write? Why should we be writing? Well, basically, I think we need many more voices from midwives, birth workers, maternity care assistants, students to be heard, to be seen, to show the public globally that we have stories to tell. And there is so much to say about midwifery. We could talk about so many different things. And who? Well, everyone, as far as I'm concerned. So many times over the years as an educator, I have had midwives and students say to me, well, I can't write. I can't do it. Well, I actually disagree. Everybody can do it. If you have taken part in a course, for example, over the past 30 years, you will have had to have written assignments. You will have had to have done so. You would have, some people have done masters and they've been sat on the shelf ever since. If you've done a conference presentation or a presentation for an interview, or even if you have done one of these wonderful midwifery hour talks, then you've actually done quite a bit of work towards it. And do you know how easy it is to turn that into an article? I can't give you the details about that now, but I can tell you how to do it. If you have been ranting on Facebook about current midwifery issues, of which I have seen a lot of people doing recently, and their frustration, why not turn that into a publication somewhere? So there are various issues that you can deal with. And what about educators? If you have developed a new innovative way of learning over this past year or over your program, actually Do you know how little there is written about midwifery education out there globally? So little. We're just not sharing practice. Nurses are doing it a bit better than we are. But midwifery educators, please get out there and start writing some of the things that you're doing to share with other people. Why are we still reinventing the wheel with each other? And there's managers and leaders and PMAs. We need you to share your good practice. And I'm not mentioning researchers particularly, because actually you often have to write up your publications anyway as part of your project. But we all know that the data that comes from a research project is out here somewhere, and your research papers end up being this bit. What about the rest of the data? And what about writing some summaries for midwives in clinical practice about what you have done and why it's important, or for new researchers about how you did your project? How did you get ethics approval? Things like that are so important to people who are just coming into research. So what are you going to write about? Well, the world's your oyster. Midwives are involved in clinical practice, research, education, politics, ethics, health promotion, and the topics are just wide. Women's health, we could be talking about contraception. But what is pushing your buttons at the moment? What is making you feel that actually you're frustrated about it, or you're really happy about it and you want to share it? What have you written about already in your studies or during your interview? What about a reflective piece that you're using for your revalidation? Why is it just staying with the NMC? Why can't you actually send that out into practice, into publications as well? How is a little bit more complicated, and I will explain more of this in detail if you decide that you're going to come to London, because I'm going to do a workshop on publication there. However, the first thing is actually to get something actively down on paper or onto a computer. Now, I'm old, I've been doing this a long time. So what I have to do is actually, I tend to write things out on paper first quickly before I do it onto a computer, because it actually helps with my ideas. Having a notebook by the bed late at night is really important for me, because I get my best ideas just as I'm dropping off to sleep, which is very irritating, but that's often what happens. And what have you also, sorry, where I've now completely lost the plot. I tend to like splurging out with a pen, but some people use something called the Pomodoro Technique. And if you haven't come across that, that's very good for students as well, is where you set out a time, perhaps a period of time for about 2 hours in the morning or whatever it is. And you write for 25 minutes, and then you have a break for 5 minutes, and then you write for 25 minutes, then you have a break. These kind of things actually really help some people to get things out on paper. And the idea is actually to write anything. You don't need to sort of think about it. You just write everything that's coming out, and then you can go back and edit it later. So these kind of things, actually, there are different tricks and tools that can actually help you. But I know time is a huge factor. I do recognize that, which is why if you do something like the Pomodoro Technique, that really does help. And also, writing with other people is really helpful. So find somebody else who is more experienced, perhaps, and say, can we write something together? And I'm pretty sure that most people would be willing to say, yes, of course, we can do something together. So where are you going to publish? There are so many different places these days. Back in the 80s, we had few places to publish. You wouldn't believe it, really, how much publication has gone on over the past few years. And of course, the amazing internet that we now have. And there are so many things to choose from. And there are blogs as well. And actually, you could just set up your own blog. You don't have to publish it somewhere else. You can just do your own thing if you want to, which is absolutely fine. Thank you very much. And check on the guidance, obviously, of different publications about whether it's going to be suitable for you to publish for them. For example, if you decide that you want to write for an engineering magazine, it's very likely that they won't accept you unless it's something something relevant from a midwifery perspective. But contact an editor for help. I'm going to skip through for some of these things. Books and chapters you can do later on, perhaps, or also you may get asked to do a chapter, and often working with somebody else can help to start you off. When to start? No time like the present. Why not make it a little aim in your break over Christmas if you do get one, or on night duty? No, that's not realistic, is it? Okay. But as students, try and get together and encourage each other. Say, what can we do? How can we ask our tutors for guidance, for example, to get in publication? Get together as a team and say, can we write something about this wonderful piece of service improvement that we've done? And finally, there are sometimes opportunities to write different things. And I have written something, which I don't know if I'm allowed to. Have I got time? I will very, 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 very quickly. I very much promise, because it's literally 55 words. And there was a competition or not a competition. There was a journal called Family Systems and Health, which I'd never heard of before. But they put out a call to say, could you write something in 50 words about transformation? So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this for you because it might mean something. Simone had disappeared inside herself, breathing deeply. At the end of each breath, a moan escapes. She dances, upright, alone, alive, as her partner holds space and loves her. I am an observer. Suddenly, she leans forward. The atmosphere is charged. I want to push. Hair, crown, face, and body appear. Simone returns, a mother. So that's just something quite different that you can do. And what I'm going to suggest to you is to think about over Christmas is whether you can write in 100 words, because I'm going to give you 100 rather than 50, to write something about new beginnings. I'm going to give you that challenge. And if you want to send them in to me here at the Midwifery Forum, then we will choose the best 5 that we will publish in the next year. Or if we get lots of them, we might publish more over the year. And of course, if anybody wants to write as well for the blog, whether you're a student or a PhD student or a midwife, then please get in touch with us and we'll be very pleased to hear from you. Thank you very much for listening.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you, Jenny. I love being reminded about the Pomodoro technique, and it's a really good strategy, actually, really helpful, because it sort of gets you really focused. Because I think mostly we're all trying to rush around, trying to do a million things, and when you're writing, you do need to sit down and accept the first few words you put down might not be brilliant, but I have to say those 50 words brilliant. And really, I brought a lump to my throat to think, because we've all been there as midwives, helping a woman become a mum, and a dad become a parent as well, whatever connections they have. That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jenny. So take Jenny up on the challenge for next year. You know where to send everything.